and it's going to be hard to fill that.
The following is the Pauling Town Board meeting.
Thank you. First up on the agenda is a presentation by the Appalachian Trail Community. It's an application for the AT community. So I'll turn this over to Mr. Morawski. Peter.
Well, good evening, everybody, and thanks for having me. I'm Pete Morawski, and I would like to thank the board for your time and consideration in regard to this program. What we're here to talk about this evening is a joint town application between Dover and Pauling to be considered an Appalachian Trail community. Stancy Duhamel and myself are the joint chairs. Stancy represents Dover, and I'm representing Pauling. Along with our committee members tonight, we have Katie House, Peter Chris, and Kathy Shubinoff here with me. Basically, the Appalachian Trail Communities Program is a designation program of the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. Here representing the AT Conservancy is Ron Rosen and Jim Haggard. At this time, I'll be turning the presentation over to Ron and Jim, and they will go over with a bit more detail. Gentlemen?
Thank you all. Good evening. I'm Ron Rosen, and this is me introduce Jim Haggett now. Get him up here. He'll do a little bit with us. Well, one of the things we'll do in a couple of minutes here is a slideshow, but as a way of introduction, Jim is the chair of the Dutchess Putnam Appalachian Trail Management Committee. He's been doing that for 7 years now, I guess, approximately. So it takes back to 2005 or 6 time frame. And then I was chair of the Dutchess Putnam AT Committee from 1980 to then. So we have a lot of experience with this area here. And I am now, the committee is a committee of the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference, which many of you may have heard of, which covers not only the Appalachian Trail, but another 1,500 miles of trails in New York and New Jersey, pretty much the metropolitan area going as far up as the Berkshires, the Catskills, out to Long Island, down to central Jersey. So that's a little idea. And then I am the coordinator of the 3 Appalachian Trail Management Committees. Dutchess Putnam is one. There's another one for New York on the west side of the Hudson River, and that is Orange and Rockland counties. And then there's also one for New Jersey, and I coordinate that and represent New York, New Jersey to the Mid-Atlantic Appalachian Trail Management, which covers the trail from the Connecticut line all the way to central Virginia, which is one of 4 regions for the AT. If you all can swivel around so you can see the slideshow over here, I'll try to move through this quickly. Just gives you a little bit of background on the Appalachian Trail. One of the things that many people don't know, but some do, is that it is a national park in the same sense that Yosemite or Yellowstone are national parks. The only difference is it is a very linear national park and has a little bit of a different look to it that way. So it is not just a 4-foot wide strip of trail. It actually is a park with, for example, it is probably the largest park in Dutchess County. Dutchess County is part of the AT, is about 5,000 acres. Okay, let's go ahead. Okay. Here you can see the route of the Appalachian Trail. For those who are not familiar with it, it goes from Maine to Georgia, approximately 2,185 miles long, plus or minus a few miles, which changes every year. So it gives you an idea of the position of it, following the backbone of the Appalachian Mountains, which are obviously the oldest mountains in North America. And here you see a little bit more detail of the actual route of the Appalachian Trail. You can see it enters New Jersey at the Delaware Water Gap location, comes into, runs pretty much along the New York-New Jersey border once it gets up to High Point, which is the highest point in Jersey. And then near Greenwood Lake, New York, makes a sharp left turn, goes into New York State, crosses the Hudson River at the Bear Mountain Bridge, which is, actually it's in the zoo adjacent to the bridge. It's the lowest point on the entire Appalachian Trail. And then from there works its way up through the town of, through Putnam County and then through East Fishkill, Beekman, and into Pauling, and bouncing around a little bit, ends up in Dover, then goes into Connecticut, comes back into New York for a very brief run on Shattuck Mountain, and then finally gets up towards Kent and stays in New England thereafter. Next. So you can see what our piece looks like a little bit there. Okay. Okay, let's talk about our local area very briefly. One of the most interesting features is this is the only train station on the entire Appalachian Trail. I think most of the people in the room here are very familiar with this. As you probably know, there's, depending on the schedule each year, they have usually two on weekends and holidays, two northbound and two southbound, sometimes three. Scheduled trains. It is not a whistle stop, so it's regular stops of the Metro North Harlem Division, and it's published on the schedule. And here's the whole thing. It gets a little confusing about how all the pieces of the trail work together, and we look at it as a three-legged stool. As I mentioned, it is a national park, so the National Park Service has overall management responsibility for any of the lands that are not in, for example, state lands like state parks. It does go right through Fahnestock State Park. Department of Environmental Conservation, a good example of that is Depot Hill Multiple Use Area, where the trail goes through some of their land. But anywhere else, the National Park Service is the owner of the land and has responsibility for land acquisition and a certain amount of law enforcement. Beyond that, the National Park Service, through formal delegation agreements, has delegated the management of the Appalachian Trail to the volunteer group, originally called the Appalachian Trail Conference, now the Conservancy, which handles the volunteer side of the trail management. And it itself has professional staff as well. But the regional office is in Boiling Springs, Pennsylvania, for that mid-Atlantic region that we discussed earlier, going from central Virginia to Connecticut. And the application that we are talking about tonight, which is for the community designation, is decided on at the regional level. So if it is approved here tonight, there are a number of support letters, and the actual application will be going to the Mid-Atlantic office, and it will be voted on at their meeting on the 2nd and 3rd of March next month. So it's less than a month away, and I will be the one voting for New York and New Jersey. But there are about 12 other delegates from other trail clubs, mostly in Pennsylvania, and going down to Virginia. The other thing you'll notice on this one is that the third part of the thing is the trail clubs, which do in turn get delegated from the AT Conservancy to actually do the on-the-ground management of the trail building, trail maintenance, trail renovations. Many of you here are familiar, got a picture coming up shortly of the boardwalk. That's essentially almost entirely volunteer done. It was funded, on the other hand. I mean, there's $250,000 in that boardwalk with a lot of federal funding in it. So you get an idea how that works. And then in turn, some of the actual trail maintenance is done by hiking clubs under the auspices of the trail committees. So, for example, the Mid-Hudson chapter of the Adirondack Mountain Club handles most of the trail work from roughly Route 22 up to the Connecticut line. But the AT committee that Jim heads takes care of most of the other land responsibilities. So we have volunteers who do such things as walk the boundaries of the federal land looking for incursions and issues. Okay? And as you can see here, New York, New Jersey is one of 31 clubs that take care of the trail from Maine to Georgia. Okay. A little bit on history. I'll go through this very quickly. Before the AT existed, it was not an Indian footpath or anything like that. It's been an invention of the 20th century. Some of the other areas, New England had the Appalachian Mountain Club. Vermont had, as this picture shows, the Long Trail, which was developed roughly in the 1910s, started developing the idea of long-distance trails, or the concept of connecting some of these hiking areas. So one of the things that was happening in that time frame is America was industrializing, and some very forward-thinking planners got the idea, in the next slide, of talking about ways for the urban citizens of America, mostly on the East Coast, to get up into the mountains, to get away from some of the problems of urban life. Benton MacKaye is considered the father of the Appalachian Trail. He wrote an article in 1921 in the American Institute of Architects Journal talking about not just the idea of a hiking path, but of having something which was community-based, that there would be communities on the trail. And the current AT community program sort of turned that around, but it's bringing back to that very original idea of it having a social aspect and a community aspect. Next. So here's some of his wording: a path interspersed with planned wilderness communities where people could go to renew themselves. Okay, next. Okay, the trail actually started getting built after he proposed the idea of putting this together to connect all these hiking areas and the backbone of America in the 22-23, and the very first piece was built, and that is Bear Mountain Bridge. You're saying there, the Bear Mountain and the bridge. The trail came across the bridge and actually headed there over to roughly where it crosses the New York Thruway. Most of you have seen the AT sign on the Thruway if you're going down towards New York City. And that is the very original piece built specifically to be part of the Appalachian Trail. So by 1925, the people who were doing the early work got together, and the word conference, the Appalachian Trail Conference, actually was conferences that were held every couple of years in the early days, which finally turned into a membership organization. So that's the way it became what is now the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, which is a consortium, if you wish, of the 31 clubs, as well as roughly 20,000 individual members of the AT Conservancy. So, finally in 1937, this picture was taken in Maine, the AT was finally completed as a continuous footpath. So it gives you an idea of the history. Now, one of the things that happened is over time, most of the land was just handshake agreements, and they decided there was a lot of impetus to say we need to protect this project and protect the program. So here you see President Johnson in 1968 signing the National Scenic Trails Act, which designated the AT as the very first National Scenic Trail. The only gotcha was the act did not fund any acquisition. So as we move on, one of the problems had is that people started building second homes that were literally right on the trail, as this example shows. So there was finally some impetus shortly after that to start saying, okay, we need to protect it while it's still possible to do so, so we need to put some teeth into the National Scenic Trails Act. So next, President Carter, during his administration, actually created the concept of acquisition of lands for permanent protection of the AT, and the amendments to the AT, to the National Scenic Trails Act, provided for 128 acres of trail for every mile of the trail. And if you do the calculation, that's an average corridor width of about 1,000 feet. Now, in reality, that doesn't fully protect the trail, but it does significantly creates the concept of a linear national park. So, now that we're past all of that, the trail is essentially complete. There may be 0.1% of it that is not done. So now, it's no longer making it connected. Now it's both protection and expanding all the opportunities that the AT brings. Here's some of it is just plain scenic beauty. This is actually part of the Bear Mountain section. There's the Hudson River there, so you get an idea of it. It's bringing natural beauty. The land that the AT protects certainly gives us a strip of protected land in an otherwise urban area. It generates oxygen to help us going. It's just a major resource in many different ways. You get an idea of both the scenic beauty that it brings to us and also the chance for people to get out of the urban environment. So, today, the Appalachian Trail isn't just the land, it's the people. And this is an example of the crew working in Pawling on the boardwalk, doing, how many hours, Jim? You mean
something like over 5,000 hours.
So 5,000 mostly volunteer hours. And what you see there is the new boardwalk on the left and the pieces of the old going into the distance on the right. Okay. So up and down the trail, it's all volunteer hours. Trail wide, I think the figure is 30,000 hours a year or something in that ballpark. And not just doing improvements like that, but also protecting the trail, the people, the volunteers who walk the boundaries. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is the future of the Appalachian Trail, and this is where the towns get involved. There are three main thrusts that the Appalachian Trail Conservancy and the National Park Service are partnering in that I want to briefly mention. The first one is the Community Partners Program, the Appalachian Trail Communities. There are now a couple of dozen of them already designated, and the program is not going to be open forever. There's going to be a point where it essentially saturates. There's only one other one in New York State, and that's the town of Warwick and Greenwood Lake. It's a combined one there, just like Dover and Pauling are. So that one, it's technically all in the town of Warwick, but also the village of Greenwood Lake and the village of Warwick are involved in that one. So that's one of the major thrusts to involve, and the real purpose of it, or one of the real values, it's a two-way street. The Appalachian Trail benefits from a lot of local activity, but the local people benefit in any number of ways, essentially increasing your ecotourism opportunities in both the town and the area. Let's go ahead. So there's already quite a few designations. In fact, there's one of them that's going to have its community celebration later this spring. And presuming this one passes through the AT Conservancy meeting in March, then the next thing for Pauling and Dover is to schedule the actual date of opening or starting this relationship. The second program, and this one I'm just going to briefly mention, is the AT provides an unusual natural science opportunity, providing a corridor of continuous land from Georgia to Maine. And in fact, it's considered, for those who know anything about the technical terms, an opportunity to do look into long-term issues of water quality, air quality, and essentially becomes a test bed for the health of the eastern United States. So the mega transect is actually a double pun in a sense. Mega is in a large transect, but also Maine to Georgia, MEGA. So this is bringing about a lot of citizen science activity where volunteers and professionals are using the AT as a long-term test bed for the condition of the eastern United States. And finally, ones that really gets the next generation involved and helps give the AT a future is the program called Trails to Every Classroom. In its present formulation, this is a program for teachers, and I guess Pauling has had one. I think it's a middle school teacher. I'm pretty sure it was I think an English teacher. Some of you may know the person involved. I don't know her. About 6 or 7 years ago, participated in the program, and what they basically get is there's a small fee now for participating in it, but they get otherwise completely paid a full week of programming where they learn how to use the Appalachian Trail as a resource for their education, for the education of their students. Everything from what's called place-based education, where they know more about their immediate environment. They learn about the entire Appalachian Trail. So the teachers actually go down to West Virginia and take a course there, and then they also have some programs closer to home. Each region has a program. It's going to be in Pennsylvania this year, for example. So the teachers apply for it. The application program process for 2013 is underway right now. And if any of you know teachers that are interested, this is something they can apply for, and preference is given to the AT communities. Go ahead, next one. So this one, after the teachers develop curriculum and also learn how to use the AT, then they go back and do this with their students, and they're doing it at everything from elementary to high school level. So it can be anything in between. And here's an example of some of the teachers actually going out and doing some field work. They actually do a couple of day hike on the trail. So that's one of the advantages of the AT Community Program. I think that's the last slide. This one is here. This is just the last of some of the teachers involved in the program a couple of years ago. So those are give you an idea of the overall program. Anybody have any questions? And if not, I'll let Jim just give a couple of quick pieces of information. Anything?
Thank you.
Jim will just give you a couple of things about some of the local work in this area.
I just want to make one note. It was Catherine Paulson.
That's right. Go ahead. Yeah.
Just two points. I'd just like to recognize that Supervisor Quarantine from the town of Dover came in. So, Ryan, thank you for coming today. And Ron had mentioned something that we're going to be voting on it tonight. It's my intention not to vote on it tonight, to let the board digest the information. And I have to finish the resolution because there's other letters of support that are not noted in the resolution. And I'd like to make sure that's all noted in there. So we'll be voting on it, as Stancy and Peter know, next week at our board meeting. Bring it up for discussion.
Okay. What I'm going to say, I think most of you know already, but I just want to make sure everybody hears it. In Dover and Pauling, the Harlem Valley, there's 13 miles of trail between the two towns, and we have 20 different volunteers that maintain the trail. So that's the kind of activity that goes on day in, day out. In Pauling, especially over the last 5 years or so, there's been sort of a hotbed of activity, as you know, first of all, with the boardwalk. That plan was first presented to the town board in 2008, the spring of 2008, and construction started in the fall of 2009, and we had the grand opening last July 1st, and I guess, I'm not sure, a number of you were there. We had over 100 people turn out for that. We had almost 80 volunteers working on that project. That included students from the Trinity Pauling School. We had, one fellow came over from the UK numerous times to work on it. It's amazing. We had the John Daly and his department was, really helped us out a lot with the grand opening, traffic control, spiffing up the parking area. We got Metro North off their duff, and they came in and made a pedestrian-friendly crossing over the tracks. They also came in and spiffed up the train station. I don't think it had been touched in 20 years. So everything came together. It was, a terrific effort, and all the feedback I get has been very positive. The other thing I'd like to note, maybe it's not the Appalachian Trail per se, but the National Park Service and some of the land it owns. Some of you were at the Nuclear Lake Dam evaluation and assessment and what they call a tabletop exercise. How do we handle an emergency if it happened? And I think, at least I was amazed at the amount of energy that they put into it and study. And, I think it was well represented. This was last September at the firehouse with the county, the state police, the town of Pauling. It was a great effort, community effort. So, anyway, I just wanted to say that, Pauling's been at the heart of what's been going on here recently. So, thanks.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Ron. Pete, closing remarks?
Once again, I'd like to thank the group for your consideration on this project, and we look forward to bringing Dover and Pauling together as an Appalachian Trail community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Supervisor Quarantine, your board voted on this last week and discussed this matter? Never give up a moment to speak. Right?
Thank you. Yes, we voted on Wednesday last week when we had our town board meeting. Just a very simple resolution saying that we approve of the Appalachian Trail community application moving forward. And, I think it'd be great. I think still got to work out the name of the community.
Who has more miles?
Dover has more miles.
I don't think so.
And Dover's ahead in the alphabet. Actually, I thought it did. Didn't Dover have 6.5 and Pauling has 5.5?
We have the boardwalk, though.
I know.
And the train
And the train station does help, too.
The train station.
I know.
That calls for a casino.
And the shower, the outside shower.
So, there's that. The suggestion was made to call it the Harlem Valley, but
We'll work on that.
either way. Yeah, that's a minor point, I think. No, I think it's great. I think that's great. We're all going to be doing this together.
I appreciate you.
And, I think everybody's been doing a great job. And, like I said in Dover last week, I don't think it would have happened without Stancy moving this forward, who is the chair of the Dover CAC. But no, a lot of people I know from both towns really put a lot of effort in. So thank you.
Well, thank you again. I appreciate it. And I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. And what work you've done. I know the subcommittees have met many times. You've done a lot of work on this and a lot of putting the application together. And as I understand, even as of today, it changed again. So what the board, what you have in front of you, the document here that's clipped is the latest one that came out today. So that's that one. All right. So thank you again. So if anybody has any questions, you can refer them to, through me, and then I'll get them answered by Stancy or Peter or anybody, a member of the group, and we'll discuss it next week.
Next week, just a question I had. You plan to complete the process next week?
So we plan on doing. That's what
Okay. So it'll be before the deadline for submitting the
Correct.
application.
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, good. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to the agenda. I'll probably go